Well, good evening, America. It is 7 p.m. Tuesday, August 25th, and this is Queer News Tonight, the world's first live LGBTQ daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news.
Watch as we bring you these and other stories from the LGBTQ headlines. A study finds that bisexual people are 6 times more likely to self-harm. And a new ad corrects Trump's lies on failed LGBTQ record.
Tomorrow, It's Happening Out, Wednesday at 8 p.m. live. We are going to discuss the Republican National Convention. Did you hear it's going on? From an LGBTQ perspective, and if it means Trump can win in November. And then on Thursday at 8 p.m. live, we are going to bring you the next episode of Gay Town Hall, the only live town hall in America of some of the biggest names in the LGBTQ world debating the hottest topics. So good evening, America. It is 7 p.m. Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. It is time to queer up the news. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight.
Well, thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. We are a live, unedited. This is an unedited news show, so anything can happen. This evening, we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBTQ community. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and this is my co-anchor, Misty Eyes. So let's queer up the news. Tonight we begin with queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in America is, of course, diverse. The LGBTQ community around the world is vast, and we bring you the bullet points of queer news for today, Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. We begin by queering up Vote 2020 in reporting that the opening night of the RNC shocks LGBTQ America. All stop. Watch this.
The Republican National Convention, as we said, kicked off yesterday by officially renominating Donald Trump for President of the United States. The convention speakers painted a bleak picture of a potential Joe Biden presidency while portraying Donald Trump as the man standing between order and anarchy, with one speaker calling him the, quote, bodyguard of Western civilization. Republicans also misrepresented the president's record, as we said, describing him as a leader who acted quickly against the coronavirus and also as a fighter for social justice.
President Donald Trump packed the first night of the Republican convention with his fiercest House allies, culture war figures, and rising stars eager to follow him into the White House. The production took on a very dark tone, with Republicans warning about lawlessness and chaos if Joe Biden takes over the White House. The Republicans managed to find 2 healthcare workers that said Trump moved mountains for COVID-19 relief, despite the widespread criticism of his response, as well as a school teacher who did not support teachers' unions. All in all, it was the most stark example yet of how far down the rabbit hole the Republican Party has fallen with Trump in just 4 short years.
You know, part of me wants to be surprised by this, but I am not. And it's funny because it reminds me, a lot of the things that have been happening remind me of, I had a friend that's Italian, his name's Francesco. I almost said his last name, I'm glad I didn't. But he used to tell people, I'm Italian, I have a huge 9-inch penis. And we went to Holliver Beach and he fell asleep and got hard, and it was 4. And I always say, are you trying to convince yourself or trying to convince everyone else? If you keep saying it over and over again out loud, who are you trying to convince? And I'm very shocked, but at the same time, I shouldn't be shocked.
Well, LGBT America, and to my Republican friends, and I have many Republican friends, I dedicated 4 hours last night to watching it. I was expecting it to be positive and at least uplifting to start with. Wow, that lasted for about 94 seconds, and then it got dark. In my opinion, if that was night one, by the time we get to tomorrow night, it's going to be grim. We're just going to keep listening to what we hear.
Next week, we're at Vote 2020. New ad corrects Trump's lies on failed LGBTQ record. Watch this.
You're muted again.
This thing. Can you hear me now? Anyway, you're just exaggerating, hon.
Ma, do you know that I could be evicted for being gay or turned away from the emergency room? Trump opposes the bill that would change that.
That doesn't sound right, son.
Don't you want to be a grandma?
Of course I want to be a grandma.
He doesn't want me to adopt. I know you like him, but I need you to understand what he's doing to harm me. Glad Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
The world's largest LGBTQ media advocacy organization just released an ad in time to correct the likely lies of President Trump and the Republican National Convention taking place this week. Entitled The Conversation, the commercial from GLAAD quickly highlights many of the dangers the Trump administration presents to the LGBTQ community, including his lack of support for the Equality Act, currently stalled in the Senate. GLAAD sees the ad as a necessary counterpoint to the fake news spread about the president's record on equality. This certainly seems to put a damper on Trump's LGBTQ outreach.
Well, of course, GLAAD always does an outstanding job. And this was a very clever ad, of course, placed at a very important time that Trump himself is likely going to see it. And the ad is very powerful because it really gets to taking the pin to burst the bubble of the lie, which is the president claims to be the most pro-LGBT president in history, and the GLAAD commercial indicates in so many ways he is not.
I am still constantly shocked and amazed how many LGBTQ people, I mean, it's not many, but I'm shocked when an LGBTQ person is a Trump supporter. I'm not shocked that they're Republican. I get that. It makes perfect sense to me that you might be LGBTQ and Republican. I am shocked that they have bought into the propaganda and they might have become a Trump fan, and that really does appall me.
Well, one of my favorite stories of the day is queering up religion. Jerry Falwell and his wife had a sexual arrangement with what I think is a very hot young man, and then resigns as president of Liberty University. Jerry Falwell Jr., a towering figure of the anti-LGBTQ evangelical movement, has resigned as president of Liberty University, the fundamentalist Christian school founded by his father. His resignation comes after a series of scandals, including a recent Reuters report that he watched his wife, Becky, have sex with another man as part of a years-long relationship between the three individuals. Queer News Tonight supposes that Mr. Falwell should have been more concerned about his bedroom instead of ours.
Next week, we're at entertainment. Canada's Drag Race judge deletes Twitter after bullying from fans. Canada's Drag Race judge, Jeffrey Bauer-Chapman, has left Twitter after fans to the show reportedly harassed him for critiques. They disliked an inauthentic demeanor of his. In one of the most debated moments from Canada's Drag Race, Bauer-Chapman chastised fan favorite Queen Jimbo for not matching the color of her arms to the color of her face for Marie Antoinette Goes to a Children's Birthday Party look in a team design challenge. Still, not a reason to bully anyone. We here at Queer News Tonight hope that the time away from social media will help him.
Next week, Queer Up the USA in reporting the Trump administration removes all references to LGBTQ people from the federal documents. The United States Agency for recently released a draft for the revised version of gender equality and women's empowerment policy. The draft includes several references to LGBTQ people that were in the previous 2012 version.
Next week, we're up the world. Far-right Australian politician says parents of trans kids should have them taken away. Pauline Hanson is a senator for Queensland, and along with her stance about trans children, has claimed she didn't know what queer meant. She went on to also say, "The LGBT community, I am sick of all of these letters."
Well, we queer up the USA in reporting a new study finds that bisexual people are 6 times more likely for self-harm. When accounting for an entire lifetime, the study found that bisexuals were 4 times more likely to self-harm than straight and gay people, and 2 times more likely than lesbians. Researchers are hoping to do further studies to obtain the reasons behind this large gap for bisexuals.
Next we queer up Vote 2020. GOP hires Twitter troll as LGBTQ outreach advisor. Richard Grenell, the former ambassador to Germany and former acting director of national intelligence, has been announced as the latest hire according to Fox News. While he left his post in Europe, Grenell could not quit Twitter and quickly resumed his relentless trolling on Trump's favorite social media site.
Well, the counterbalance to that story on Grenell is we queer up the Vote 2020 in reporting, meet the black gay man behind Joe Biden's LGBTQ outreach program. Reggie Greer is the new LGBTQ vote director for Biden's campaign, who says he joined Biden's team because of his leadership and empathy to do the right thing. Greer was Deputy Director of Public Engagement at the U.S. Department of Transportation when Biden was Vice President and Barack Obama was President.
Now we queer up the USA. Utah City stops flying pride banners after political complaints. Heber City, a city in Utah, has imposed new limitations on banners that can be flown on city-owned property after some residents complained about pride banners that had been flown for the past 2 years during Pride Month. Some of the residents called them odd, political, and disturbing.
We queer up the world in reporting a Polish gay couple traveled to the Vatican to unfurl a giant pride flag in front of Pope Francis, begging for help. Jacob and David are filmmakers and activists who we've talked about at Queer News Tonight about previously for distributing pride flag face mask in Poland's LGBTQ-free zones. Although Pope Francis has made no significant policy changes towards the LGBTQ community, he has been less hostile and voiced support more than his predecessors. Next, let's catch up on all the news surrounding COVID-19 with our segment called Quarantine Quickies. The first story tonight is our daily reporting of the coronavirus facts, especially important to the LGBTQ community. We will report first on coronavirus case numbers. Based on standard acceptance of our population, the world's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 1,676,637, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 415,146. We remind you that the USA is just 4.4% of the world's population, and today America is 24.7% of all of the world's cases. Next, we report on coronavirus deaths. The world's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 57,401, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 12,714. The USA is 22.1% of all of the world's deaths.
Quarantine Quickies. Over 100,000 infected in U.S. from COVID-19 by the time emergency was declared on March 13th. Watch this.
Appreciate everybody being here. Today I'd like to provide an update to the American people on several decisive new actions we're taking in our very vigilant effort to combat and ultimately defeat the coronavirus. We've been working very hard on this. We've made tremendous progress. When you compare what we've done to other areas of the world, it's pretty incredible.
The coronavirus may have infected more than 100,000 people in the United States by the time the White House
declared a national emergency. Declared a national emergency on March 13th, and production's going to help us here. A national emergency on March 13th, according to a new study. Such a large reservoir of infections, mostly under the radar of health authorities, could have severely affected the outcome of nationwide efforts to control the disease. It suggests that the United States was well past the possibility of containment by 12 March, said the researchers led by Alex Perkins, associate professor at the University of Notre Dame, in a peer-reviewed paper published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States on Friday. Next in Quarantine Quickies, we report only 3 in 10 approve or trust Donald Trump on coronavirus, but only 5 in 10 for Joe Biden. Watch this.
Speaking of embarrassment and shame, a new poll confirms what should obviously be the case. And yet in America, when 60 million people voted for Donald Trump, it would be wrong to assume that what makes sense will be. Most Americans are embarrassed, however, by the Trump coronavirus response, according to a new SSRS poll. So not only are we the laughingstock of the world and the pity of the world, we are also embarrassed, which is good. We should be. The right emotion is to be embarrassed by what we've done on this planet as far as coronavirus is concerned.
Fewer than 1/3 of Americans approve of President Donald Trump's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, according to a new poll. The poll was released Monday by the Associated Press and the University of Chicago's NORC Center for Public Affairs Research, which found that only 31% of Americans approve of Trump's response to the virus, while 68% disapprove. The same polling group found that 44% of Americans approved of the president's response in March. A significant partisan divide was found in the poll. Republicans largely approved of the president's handling of the pandemic, with 66% approving and 31% disapproving. An overwhelming 93% of Democrats disapproved, while 7% approved. Independents also disapproved at 71% to 28%. Next, we cue up a commentary where we say an apology to a gay business, why I was wrong, and how you should support our LGBTQ community. On Saturday, I made a short Facebook post about my experience with Dude's Barber. This is a gay-owned business on the famous Wilton Drive in the heart of Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I joke, the gayest place on planet Earth. I had a reoccurring appointment there to get my hair cut. I left after arriving 10 minutes early, waiting, and then after that, waiting for 15 minutes for my appointment. The point of my post was to ask how gay small business is doing in customer service during the pandemic crisis. Wow, did I hit a nerve. It should be noted that I asked in my post right from the beginning, was I being a Karen by leaving after what I thought was a reasonable amount of time? First, I apologize to Dude's Barber. It's a great small gay business. They deserve your support. The owner, Frank Spadada, apologized and rightly said I should have spoken to him before saying it publicly in social media. He's completely right. I was completely wrong. Hopefully my very public words here correct that mistake. Second, while every word I said was correct, we should be talking about what's next for our gay community during COVID-19 pandemic. Customer service, how gay and other consumers are supporting our gay business. I didn't express that series of questions correctly. Again, I'm trying to correct that now. Third, gay community, what is next? Our gay small business is on its knees. How can they survive with fear, 25% occupancy, and no rent reduction in this world we are living? Our bars are closed. Our new bar restaurants are selling, wink wink, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to try to be legal. Our drag queens and other entertainers are doing online shows just to stay alive, to be tipped. They have nowhere to perform. Did you ever wonder where over 100 RuPaul Drag Race queens are performing to make money? Multiply that by 1,000 for a local queen or LGBTQ entertainer. Fourth, so what's next? The LGBTQ community, in one way or another, all of us, are Karens. We want. It's been our gay experience. It's the Will and Grace Just Jack joke. But while that is often who we have been, today we can't be that. Our words and actions have meaningful effect on our community. Business space here in Wilton Manors on Wilton Drive, for example, is closing in a higher percentage than in a generation. To talk about the way we used to do it is a total waste of valuable time. Next, imagine what is happening in communities across America where a gay neighborhood does everything it can just to reach some visibility, but they don't have the power of a Wilton Manors or Fort Lauderdale. In pandemic, our gay community businesses are not getting our gay community loyalty in the degree necessary to survive. So will our gay business survive this? You can't answer that question because we don't know yet. So my imprecise words on Facebook made it worse for Dude's Barber. They are struggling, some days good, some days bad, but overall, there is no gay business in America that is not scared as all get out because our president, our governor, and our county and city's management to this pandemic. Any negative contribution to that fear makes me sad, and I regret any contribution I made to that. Bottom line, if you do not support our gay business community, you are going to wake up one morning soon where there is no gay business community. All stop. Finally, fifth, what can you and I do? Some suggestions. Ensure if you have a choice to spend your money in a gay small business, you do so. Support businesses that support our community, organizations that propel businesses that embrace, respect, and support us. Organizations like the Wilton Manors Business Association, the Greater Fort Lauderdale LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, the Miami-Dade Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. There are these type of business organizations across America. Put your money where your mouth is. They already have. Next, voice your support of these businesses in your Facebook and other groups. Engage and interact in Facebook groups like Miami Gay List, What's Happening on the Drive, Wilton Manors, Oakland Park Florida Gays, LGBTQ of South Florida. These type of social media groups can dramatically focus our attention on our gay business community. It's our community. There are many business-oriented groups that welcome broad support of our community, like Facebook groups of Ramrod or Hunters. There are news and discussion groups like Wilton Community News Group, and even our own It's Happening Out group. Look, we post hot men pictures and stories, and it completely gets all of our attention. I love it too. But let's commit to what I now call the gay COVID-19 50-50 rule. Every time we talk about the beautiful face, body, or dick we see online, we match it with a gay business tax to simply voice support of some small gay business. By doing so, you are literally saving your own community. Look, This is what I was really trying to generate in my comments on Dude's Barber. The attacks were fast and furious, and you were right. But what are you going to do about your rightness? Because you haven't done anything yet. Shouting someone down doesn't accomplish anything. If we bitch for the sake of bitching, broad stereotype here, but we're only just being gay. So what's next? For me, you just watched it. I loudly, genuinely, sincerely speak up for our gay business associations, our charity 501c3 and pride organizations, where donations have almost completely dried up, our bars, our restaurants, our business community, and the LGBTQ community as a whole. Gay neighborhoods are being decimated by COVID-19. We must surround the wagons now and protect our gayborhoods. Make an appointment to get your hair cut in a gay small business like Dude's Barber this week, or Ron's, or Dick's, or Buck and Beard. I have an obligation to voice support in sound commitment and my money. Don't we all? If we're going to save our LGBTQ community from COVID-19 pandemic, I hope you accept my apology. And you start an apology process of your own. Our community is worth it. Oh, and that reminds me, I still need to get a haircut. Happening Out Television Network is broadcasting on our brand new set in partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church in Fort Lauderdale and Wilton Manors, Florida. We joke this is the gayest place on planet Earth, and our support of their Sunday celebration is the largest LGBTQ religious broadcast in the world, every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. We encourage you to tune in. Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church. Watch this.
I do social media outreach here at Sunshine Cathedral.
And I'm Dennis McWilliams, and I'm part of the AV ministry here at Sunshine Cathedral. Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
We'd like to thank our set designer, Conceptual Modern Living, here in Fort Lauderdale for making this set in this amazing queer church campus possible.
Happening Out Television Network, including Queer News Tonight, is proud to partner with OUTShine Film Festival, which will run until August 30th. Tickets are on sale now at outshinefilm.com. All of the platforms of Happening Out Television Network will be reporting on very interesting news from one or more of the important LGBTQ film festivals in the works, especially OUTShine. Here's a short video about one of the most important LGBTQ film festivals in the world. Watch this. This evening, we feature the film Give or Take. When a disillusioned New Yorker's father dies, he goes home to Cape Cod and prepares the house for sale. Making the situation all the more difficult, he is forced to come face to face with his old friends, his old life, and his father's late in life live-in boyfriend. With nothing to separate them, they are forced to negotiate how to remember. This touching, funny, raw, and honest film is a snapshot of empathy and understanding that we could all use in the middle of the COVID pandemic. We welcome the director and co-writer Paul Riccio and co-star and co-writer Jamie Effros to Queer News tonight. Good evening, Paul and Jamie.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having us.
Well, Paul is on Cape Cod. I'm jealous as all get out. We were talking about that earlier, and Jamie is in Brooklyn. And I love Brooklyn. We were talking about the Black Party. Paul is the director of this film, Give or Take, and Jamie was the co-writer with him and the co-star in the film. Paul or Jamie, tell us a little bit about Give or Take.
Well, it seems like eons ago, but it started about 5 years ago when I had this kernel of an idea for a story about a guy whose father passes and has to go back up to Cape Cod to take care of his affairs. And Jamie and I have worked together before, and he's a terrific actor and a terrific friend. And I called him immediately, and one thing led to another, and we decided to write it together. And then we decided we wanted Norbert Leo Butz in the film. We had this character Ted that we wrote for Norbert, who's a terrific actor, two-time Tony Award winner. But at that time, it was like, sure, of course, Norbert will, in between him, Broadway shows and TV shows, he'll do our little movie. And it was magic. Got the script to Norbert, and he really was the person who sort of got this whole thing going. And then Sherry O'Terry, and it was really kind of magical the way it all turned out. So,
Jamie, have you ever co-written or co-starred in a film that has appeared in an LGBTQ film festival before, or is this first time?
This is the first time for everything for me. I've not co-written a film before. I've only done short pieces before, and I've only been in a few film festivals around the country and around the world. And this is our first foray into LGBTQ festivals, and it's been just absolutely fantastic the way that we've been welcomed. And we just feel so honored to be a part of OUTShine and to be a part of the other LGBTQ festivals that we're in right now. It's really been a lot of fun.
Well, as both Paul and Jamie know, OUTShine Film Festival here in South Florida is one of the largest festivals for the LGBT community in the world. And it's kind of different this year because there's this little tiny thing of COVID-19 going on, and as a result, the film festival has had to reinvent itself, especially with independent films like yours. What's it been like to embrace a film festival? You have several tremendous film festivals in the New York Metropolitan, Tribeca, of course. But what's it like to participate in a digital film festival that's had to reinvent itself in this year? What's it been like for you?
Well, it's okay. So the obvious downside is that we don't get to congregate and celebrate with each other and see each other and have that sort of that froth of creativity and meeting other filmmakers. So that stinks. But the thing that I take away, I'm embracing it. I have an inkling that more eyeballs are going to see our film than otherwise would be during a normal festival, just because you can just sit back on your couch and watch it as opposed to getting to a theater or whatever. So there's that limitation taken away. And I think it's great. But the huge downside is just not being able to be with each other and celebrating and all of that. And it's so important to the festival circuit. So that's the real downside.
You know, Jamie, I'm curious in terms of you being the co-star of the film. if you're an actor on stage and let's say you're performing in front of 200 or 300 people, or you participate in a film festival, an independent film festival around the country or someplace in the world, and maybe 300 people are in a movie theater, is it a strange feeling for you that in a time of COVID, that really dramatically more people can be watching you than was ever intended in the traditional film process of your acting skills being seen, because so many more people are going to see you digitally?
Yeah, I think it's very exciting. It's and like Paul said, it's this strange double-edged sword, because we don't get that in-person experience. But yeah, it is really exciting to be able to just do what I do what we do for so many more people potentially than we would before, and just get that type of a spread and distribution and to be out there. I mean, where we all go as actors, artists, what have you, from there is the next question. I think that, festivals like OUTShine have done this incredible job of making it all virtual this year. The technology that they've suddenly had to embrace in order to make these films available in the way that they have, and to be able to make them still some of these exciting events, is really incredible, and it's gonna open up, I think, a whole new world of what film festivals and what online film festivals can be. So I think it's going to change the landscape of the way that we watch things, and also the inclusion of who we can watch, who we get to watch, who gets to have a voice.
Very interesting observation, because we're watching a LGBT independent film festival, one of the most important in the world, presented in a completely new way in 2020. And even this conversation is a completely new way that independent film and LGBT is displayed. We're in a digital live television LGBT news show talking about a film that you envisioned to never be digitally presented. So it's a whole new world, isn't it, in 2020, that we're all reinventing ourselves. It's very interesting. Well, I want to thank you, LGBT America. You've got to support this film. It's called Give or Take. Go to OUTShine's festival site, OUTShineFilm.com. You can participate. More than 40 films, including this one, Give or Take. And we constantly remind, in terms of our voicing support from Happening Out Television Network, if you were ever going to support an LGBTQ film festival, 2020 is the year, because of the dramatic effects that are going on in COVID-19. It's affected 501c3s and not-for-profit organizations in our community significantly. OUTShine has been tremendously strong in reinventing themselves, and they deserve your attention. And this film, Give or Take, deserves your attention. So go to the website to see it. Paul, Jamie, thank you very much for being with Queer News tonight.
Thank you so much for having us.
And Paul, I have to say just one more time, the sun is setting over Paul, but he's in Cape Cod. You're in Cape Cod.
Yes, no, I'm sorry about the light just went down like a lead weight, and I apologize, but we're way east, so it goes down early.
But can I make the joke, twilight to darkness in Cape Cod? It's not so bad. Not so bad.
No, it's not a bad place to be.
Exactly. Thanks, guys, for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Tonight is part 24 of Q's Q&A on coronavirus and the LGBTQ community, August 25th. This special segment is designed to be unique in America to answer your questions about coronavirus for the LGBTQ community during this pandemic. Every Tuesday, we have an American pioneer in HIV and AIDS medical treatment. With us is Dr. Howard Grossman, specialist in internal medicine with an emphasis on HIV. He was the executive director of the American Academy of HIV Medicine. He has become nationally recognized as an educator on HIV issues and as an advocate for LGBTQ civil rights and the rights of our community.
And of course, he has become our medical expert during pandemic for Queer News tonight. Welcome, Dr. Grossman. We're glad you're here. Before we get into viewer questions, as we start every single episode, 25, my goodness, another big week. There's several big stories in the news this week for COVID. Big week for science and the medical community. And before we discuss any of the viewer questions, I want to give you the opportunity to springboard and dive right in wherever you want to tell us about what's on your mind this week.
Well, first, hi, Misty.
Hi.
Happy anniversary.
You're at the table today.
Yeah. Happy anniversry.
Right.
Or unhappy anniversary. First, Al, I would really like to salute the piece that you just did, the apology, that very touching piece. And, you know, I think in this time of COVID, supporting gay business is very important, but I think also reassessing our use of social media, bullying.
Dr. Grossman, turn it on.
It's on. It's on.
Turn the switch on.
It's on. It's been on. Sorry, we're having microphone problems. In any case, I think it's time to reassess our use of social media because it's so easy to pick up, open your computer and write something really nasty. People have been talking about this for ages, and it hurts small businesses, not just LGBT businesses. But those reviews, people go to businesses based on those reviews. And so I really would encourage people to think twice, having been on the receiving end of some really nasty stuff as a medical provider for people who had true psychological problems. You really can destroy a business by putting that. And I would also encourage
or
people,
provide misinformation.
If you've had a good experience, to actually write a very quick note on social media to praise that business, because people do pick the businesses by what you write. And the more good reviews a person gets, the better. Certainly if a place is terrible, you want people to know it. But I would do it in a way that is not destructive but supportive, and that's a difficult balance to strike. So thank you. I think that's a really important health issue for our community and for all communities, especially in this time.
Great.
Go ahead and you've got some great questions.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's jump right into viewer questions tonight.
Sure. This question confuses me a tiny bit, so I might need your clarification. But Trump just approved COVID-19 plasma treatment. What is your advice, and what does this even look like? Like, what would happen with this?
Well, Trump didn't approve this. Trump forced the FDA to approve this, which is exactly the kind of politicization of the FDA that every medical expert in the world has been worried about. Okay, so let's be very clear about the plasma treatment. Now, I gave plasma when I had antibodies.
So did I.
And I think it's important. And it's very important that it be studied because you're giving antibodies to people who are sick. At least that was the way we were told. Now, the problem is the way this is rolled out. This was rolled out saying that this was an important treatment that had been scientifically proven, and the White House doubled down on that again today. In fact, this is a treatment that has not been proven. Now Alex Azar, the Secretary of HHS, who has been a mouthpiece for pharmaceutical companies and other players for years, said that it decreased mortality by 35%. Now, the truth of the matter is that this was a Mayo Clinic study, 70,000 people that they gathered information on. And first of all, both groups got plasma. One group got high antibody titer plasma, one group got low antibody titer plasma. Now, the way they presented it, you would think one got plasma, one got nothing. That's not what happened. And they looked at the two groups, and the difference was that 3 people in the high antibody titer plasma
recovered,
did better, and 3 out of 100 did better, and 5 out of 100 in the low antibody titer plasma. So that was a 35% difference, okay? But 3 out of 100 versus 5 out of 100, and in fact, overall, there really was no difference between low antibody and high antibody. And that's number one. Number two is that these were people who didn't need to go on respirators, so these were people who weren't as sick. And we've all thought that the plasma was being given to the sickest patients. And the third thing is that it turns out that to have any difference, you have to really give this stuff very early before people develop their own antibodies. So remember, those first 2 or 3 weeks, there's no sense in getting antibody tests because they don't appear for about 2 to 3 weeks. And once a person develops their own antibodies, why do they need external antibodies? So you really have to give it very early, which is not generally when we'd be doing this. So there's so many complications with this. Scientists everywhere have been slamming it today and saying this was ridiculous. This is politicizing.
Why is he doing this then? Is it just more misdirection?
False hope?
Election.
Yeah.
It's the election, and he's looking for good. So he's had so much bad news this week between his son, being subpoenaed. One of his good friends, Steve Bannon, being indicted. I mean, on and on and on. As far his sister, tapes released with his sister saying what a jerk he is. How much worse can you get? And he's looking for any piece of what good news he can get. I think it is despicable that the Health and Human Services and the FDA have been turned like this to give people false information. I understand that Sanjay Gupta on CNN confronted Alex Azar today, and he said that he was wrong in the way that he presented this.
Is there any, before we move on to our next question, is there any medical risk to the LGBT community in terms of having plasma or plasma treatment, or is there any risk?
You can always have a reaction to plasma.
Okay.
But I think for the most part, it's just that it's a therapy that needs to be further studied. We need to know the difference between people who get plasma and people who don't. Is there really a difference? Is there a mortality difference? Is it worth spending all this money on? And we just don't know the answers to those questions.
Let's move on. A viewer wrote in pandemic, do we need to be worried over? Oh wait,
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Kentucky Fried Chicken has announced this week that they're suspending their 50-year-old marketing campaign of finger-licking goods over concerns of pandemic. And so the writing question was, in pandemic, do we need to be worried over finger-licking good?
Well, I think licking other people's fingers might be something you want to avoid. But, Mom, we always go back to Mom, right? Mom always said, wash your hands before you eat. If you wash your hands before you eat and it's you touching the food, I don't see what difference it's going to make to lick your own fingers.
Yeah. So you think KFC's approach here was just because of a branding concern, not really a medical concern?
Yeah, no, totally.
Okay.
Totally. I'm not sure why they did it, because I think it's completely safe if you're eating the food. What
especially finger
difference is it
food
going to make if you touch with your fingers?
Right.
Remember, this is a respiratory virus. It's not one you get by ingesting things. It's not one you get by sex. It's respiratory virus. The whole thing with fingers is touching your eyes, touching your nose, picking your nose and sticking virus up your nose. I mean, that's how you get this.
I'm going to spend all evening trying to get that in my head.
There you go.
Dr. Grossman.
And remember, again, I'm going to say, we've talked about the masks. I see lots of people in my practice wearing masks that do not fit well over the nose. You can see my mask has this metal bar. Now, lots of inexpensive masks don't have that. And so what I've been recommending to people is that they just get a paper clip, open it up, and glue it to your mask. Or get a little piece of wire not from Home Depot, but from Lowe's. The guy at Home Depot is a right-wing lunatic.
Oh, I gotcha.
But get a piece of wire and stick it into the mask so that you have something that you can shape to your nose. That's really important.
I want to ask you, before we move on to our final question, which is the big question of the week in COVID, I want to come back to your mask questions. You, again, point out about the respiratory. There's been so much discussion this week about face shields. And so many people saying, like when you're flying, that face shields actually may provide better protection. And it intuitively doesn't make sense to me because there's so much opening at the bottom. But more and more people are saying that the actual, because it is respiratory in terms of expulsion or expelling respiratory droplets, that the face shield is actually better than mask. What do you think about that?
No, it's face shield plus a mask. It's
Doing both is the
than-
best.
Injection.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
And what do you...
Because it protects the eyes. If your mask is loose, it's providing another barrier. On an airplane, you know, if you have the air pushing at you, it's blowing everything away from you anyway, but
that makes sense.
if you're worried about it. I'm not sure that it makes that much of a difference, but
A face shield
I saw
versus
lot
a
of people-
mask.
A face shield versus a mask? No,
Yeah.
mask is number one.
Definitely
The
mask.
face shield is on top of it.
Okay, we're seeing more and more acceptance of people being in businesses, for example, customers coming in, and it's being considered a face mask, but it's really the face shield.
Shouldn't be, because you can just expel it out the bottom.
Okay, all right, all right.
Another viewer asked, the first reinfection case was just reported in Hong Kong. Is this true? And what's next for you and all of us?
Well, from what I've read about it, it's a very interesting case. So this was a person who was infected, I believe, in March or earlier, and then more recently traveled to Europe from Hong Kong and came back and was sick again. And when they actually looked at the virus, it's genetically different by 24 nucleotides than his original virus. Apparently, they sequenced that virus as well. So, you know, it appears to be the first documented case of reinfection with a coronavirus in the same family. I think it's important, number one, that he picked this up in a different part of the world. And certainly travel restrictions are in place all over the place now. And the second thing is that, okay, we were expecting that this could happen because protection from all kinds of viruses is not 100%, but it's 1 out of probably 24 million people who've been infected. So look at the numbers. I mean, if this was a significant problem, you would be having a lot of reinfections. And we have 1 after, I mean, if this showed up in China in December, it's 1 after 9 months. So, you know, now how long immunity will last, that's something we've talked about over and over again. We don't know. You know, flu, you need to get vaccinated every year, and we'll use this moment to remind people, please, please get the flu vaccine. It's out there now. Get it now when people aren't getting colds so that you don't get a cold on top of it and think it's from the vaccine.
And not too early to get the flu shot?
No. You have your antibodies will last well into next year.
Okay.
But get it now so that there's no confusion if you get ill between the flu and the coronavirus. The symptoms look the same.
Okay, and I want to re-clarify what I heard you say, which is the most interesting thing that was about this story. First off, when I heard the reporting on this, I wondered if it was accurate first, and then I thought of you instantly because you're one of the first people that I heard of in South Florida to contract coronavirus, and then you had the antibodies, etc. The number at 24 million and now 1 or a couple of small number of cases, the numbers are just astronomical in terms of the incident number is so beyond small, it's just beyond small. But so many people, I'm concerned in the LGBT community, will just run amok in the story of catapulting this story. What do you think about, as these numbers of coronavirus, we're reporting nearly 500,000 LGBT in the United States have COVID, 1.5 million LGBT around the world. More and more and more and more people are going to have COVID. They're going to have antibodies as they hopefully recover. What do you think about for them that have antibodies? Is there any effect of this study or this reporting news with somebody that has recovered from coronavirus? They should be following all the same protocols, shouldn't they, of somebody who hasn't?
Well, that's what we've been saying. I mean, you know, there is some psychological, I think, relaxation when you know that you've already been infected, because we do know there is an immune response, and we know that at least for a few months, people seemed to be okay. You know, it's totally predictable that there would be cases. I mean, let's look at PrEP, you know, pre-exposure prophylaxis that so many gay men are taking. You know, it's not 100% effective. It's 99.9% effective. I mean, that's about as close as you can get. But there have been a few breakthrough cases, but a handful in the entire world for people who were actually taking the drug. So it wasn't unexpected when it happened, but it's like, again, would it stop you from doing it? I think the problem in our community is the amount of misinformation. You know, we have a practice in Key West, and I go down there every other week. And I was down there a few weeks ago and brought a couple of friends with me who went off to a gay hotel for the
Island
day.
House.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention any names. And truthfully, you know, the hotel tries to take precautions of making people wear masks when they're walking around, but the pool was like a gay men's soup. I mean, there must have been 40 or 50 people in the pool, packed together, no masks. My friends were wearing masks, and some guys from Atlanta said, "Oh, we don't have to worry. We've got herd immunity in Atlanta because we were all partying together." I mean, that is the stupidest thing I think I've heard in months. But if there are gay people out there who think that, you know, they are putting everybody else at danger.
Yeah.
I mean, herd immunity means 70 to 80% of the entire population infected with the virus. We're nowhere near that, okay? And so that kind of attitude puts everybody in danger. And that, to me, is the problem. I think for people who've been infected, most will do okay. I still wear my mask, you know. I still wear my mask everywhere I'm supposed to. Do I, inside of me, feel a little bit more relaxed than maybe you guys?
Sure.
Not you, Al, but Misty.
Yeah, I've not had
and
it.
who's never been infected? Yes.
Did you say I'm not having it?
No, I have not. I'm one of the few people I know that hasn't contracted COVID-19.
Right, and so, you know, you are going to be even more nervous up front.
Of course.
The other thing that they said in this study is that the guy had a more mild form of disease, and this is something that scientists have been hypothesizing about for the last couple of months, that if a person was to get reinfected, since they do have some residual immunity, that the case would be more mild, and that's what seemed to happen with this guy in Hong Kong. So I think that, you know, there's plenty of reason, I think, to hope, but also be smart, to know that it can happen and to take those precautions. Plus, this is the social norm, wearing the masks. You know, I saw a patient today who lives north of here in a county that makes a strong recommendation for masks, but they took out their mask mandate.
Right.
Okay? And he told me that until June, nobody up there was wearing masks, months and months after this whole thing started.
Yeah.
So, you know, because I said, how did you get infected? He goes, well, nobody was wearing masks. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've come to the end of the segment. Before we finish, Dr. Grossman, want to give you anything else that you want to bring up for the week? Or?
I would just caution people, there's a lot of misinformation coming out at the Republican convention about what Trump has done with coronavirus, about what's working, what's not working. I would just caution people, you know, go to the doctors, go to the scientists, take everything you hear this week about coronavirus at that convention with a grain of salt, because, you know, they're not telling the real story.
Well, that's it. And that's why we're at part 25. I have a few friends of mine around the country that are betting me how many different parts of Q&A on coronavirus in the LGBT community. I'm wondering if we're going to hold you into your absolute retirement, because we may be doing this that long. But we certainly thank you for what you do. Every Tuesday night, we bring you viewer questions and the most important medical advice, the clarity of accurate information. You hear Dr. Grossman, it's one of the top things that I hear from him tonight in every subject related to COVID and our LGBTQ healthcare is to pay attention attention where you're getting your information and learn from accurate information, not the gossip that you read online. Remember, our expert is Dr. Howard Grossman. He runs Midway Specialty Care Center right here in Wilton Manors in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And as always, thank you, Dr. Grossman, for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Sal.
We are going to end tonight's broadcast with what we call the Big Finish. These are short story mentions of LGBTQ news or news with a gay perspective. And Misty and I are going to get ready to have some fun. We're going to have some fun here. So here we go. First on Queer News tonight's The Big Finish. Have you heard? A new report shows that William Shakespeare was undeniably bisexual. Researchers say after analyzing 27 love sonnets written for men.
Hello, people. This is not news. First of all, gender and sexuality is a spectrum, which means nobody is 100% anything. Second, some of history's best creations are from the LGBTQ++ community, like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Oscar Wilde.
Well, I have to point out, Shakespeare was over 400 years ago.
Yes.
So, or as it would be called in a more modern term, the former president of Liberty University.
Oh.
The Big Finish. One of Britain's first ever gay dads is to marry his daughter's ex-boyfriend after proposing during a family holiday.
Okay.
It's going to be a Lifetime movie. I know it is. There's the picture.
Okay, so this man is the father that gained fame when he was part of the first ever gay British couple to use a surrogacy service for their child. Okay, girl, here's where the shade begins. This millionaire has lost his mind. This 50-year-old man fell in love with his daughter's ex-boyfriend. He then divorced his husband of 32 years and eloped with his daughter's ex, who is 25. And the best part, all three of these men are living in a $6 million mansion in Florida. I only hope that Scott and Saffron broke up before her dad dug his claws into her boyfriend. Dick is never worth more than your relationship with your daughter.
Oh, that's so straight womanish of you. So
you would choose Dick over your daughter's love?
I've heard about a father wanting their daughter to find a good man, but I somehow don't think this is what they usually have in mind. The Big Finish. Happy birthday. Oh, goodness. Misty, we're getting old. Happy birthday, Windows 95.
I would say Windows turns 25 years old, and I would love to say that it's almost as old as me. But in reality, I'm old enough to remember when this first came out in 1994.
An operating system that was so robust, it threatened the possible breakup of Microsoft in fear of being a monopoly in the industry. I'm still waiting on the news about what happens to Jeff Bezos, by the way. The Big Finish. LGBTQ America, pay attention. It is a lie that America is a racist because South Carolina's Nikki Haley and Senator Tim Scott told me so.
Girl. You can tell me the Easter Bunny is real. And you can tell me the Tooth Fairy is real as well. That doesn't mean it's real. I'm glad these two people have not been personally affected by racism. But let me explain to you something. Let me explain this really quick. Racism in America is real and it is systemic. Meaning, for the first 400 years, America lived as though black lives did not matter. Black people were not even looked at and or considered as human beings. That mindset has been inherited and that mindset has been passed down for centuries. By default, most Americans believe the white girl is prettier automatically or the white girl is smarter automatically.
Yeah, did we hit a nerve here?
I'm just tired. Like, girl, please, come on.
Let me tell you other things. Dr. Grossman's still sitting here at the table. Let me tell you something else I learned last night at the RNC. Did you know that COVID-19 is a hoax?
Oh, right.
It is. Except for when it is the China virus. The earth
In
may
Israel.
be flat. Gays are the sexual deviants, not the guy who watched his wife have sex with another man and then paid him off secretly for years. Oh yes, any day
8
now,
years.
Jesus is going to return and save us all because
8
the
years.
Republicans know what is real. The big finish. Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you. Because last night you told us we are going to make America great again. Again.
If at first you don't succeed, try, and try again.
I, almost even more than Trump, am looking forward to voting Mike Pence out of office. I honestly think he's an idiot. The big finish.
Again.
KFC is temporarily, as we've just talked about in Q's Q&A on coronavirus, KFC is temporarily dropping its finger-licking good. Oh, I can hear the jokes now on the finger-licking good motto, citing its concern for its hygienic implications amid the coronavirus.
Oh my God. Why are Americans so ignorant? Girl, come on. Why are you so ignorant that a national chain has to tell you to stop putting your fingers in your mouth? But hello, America. Everyone should know this. Dr. Grossman should not have to come on our show and tell you, you need to wash your hands before you eat.
Stop picking
and if
your
you
nose.
do, it's okay to lick your hands, your own hands, after you wash them.
That's right. And as an avid lover of chicken, and I'm mostly talking about age.
Mostly.
If KFC is your preferred place to get chicken, you probably need all the help you can get in terms of staying alive.
Oh, Jesus.
As good judgment is clearly not a trait that you possess, Popeyes forever.
That is today's news for the LGBTQ community on the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Remember, if it's, I was sitting here thinking about chicken, by the way.
Chicken
I apologize, Misty.
You heard a chicken hunter.
Remember,
Swing boy.
if it's important, wait, you say that like it's not true.
It is.
If it's important to the LGBTQ community, it's important to Queer News Tonight, but you must help us. Click subscribe on YouTube and share this news.
We are literally out into the headlines. This is the only source of live LGBTQ news in the world. Your community needs your support.
Literally.
Literally.
You are not alone. We will get through this crisis.
We are here with you. And this is Queer News Tonight.
So thank you for joining us, America. I'm Al Ferguson, and on behalf of Misty Eyes, we will see you daily and tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Good night, America.